Okay, Diana and Kathy, welcome. It's so good to
Hey,
see both of
hey.
you here today.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So, okay, so adaptive notation. This is,
Yeah.
I think, every time we have seen it at something like national seminar or area festivals or something, everybody is always like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" And I'm curious to know what was the impetus for it? What made you think, what made you say, I need to design this way so that these people can play the instrument. What and how did you decide what elements to include and what elements not to include?
Um, which one of us do you want?
Let's start with you, Kathy.
Okay. I did not design it. The program I directed in Abilene Public Schools started almost 50 years ago.
Hmm.
And Letha McGrew is the name of the lady that began it. She was working with special needs students and she was a handbell person. And just it would be great if I could come up with some way to let my students learn to ring handbells.
Hmm.
And so she had seen a group from somewhere perform and used a similar notation system. So she started out with just a single line melody with and you know how the music works. It's colored letters. Letters are the names of the notes, and the color tell which octave you're playing in. And so she started off with just a one line, one note melody, and they started there and progressed on. And she added just more notations as the music called for them. And she just kind of invented it as she went along. She directed the group for 19 years, and then she retired, and I kind of took it over from her and used the same system. So it was kind of a necessity is what the mother of invention or something like that. And so I give all the credit for what we do in Abilene to her, and I just continued on her work.
And how long have you been doing it, Kathy?
Well, I did it for 18 years before I retired.
Okay.
And then the current director has been there. This is his 10th year.
Mhm.
So we're about to celebrate, I think, in about 3 more years, the 50th anniversary, and with 3 directors.
Nice.
Excellent, excellent. So Diana, what about you? I mean, I know that we've talked in the past, you and I, about a little bit about Brookwood, but what gave you the impetus to start directing them, and how did you change what already came before you, if you did it all?
Well, Linda McKechnie founded the choir at the Brookwood community, and she spent a lot of time in Abilene. She worked with Letha McGrew, and so she helped bring the adaptive notation to the Brookwood community. They started on chimes and graduated to handbells. They formed their handbell choir about 20 years ago, and I am their third director. I've been there since 2019. I just wanted to go out. I had history from 20 years ago through my church at the Brookwood community, and I wanted to take my church handbell ensemble to play, and they invited me to tour the campus, and they were looking for a new director. And I saw faces that I had met years before, and I was just drawn to it. So I came along, and the director before me, Kevin Coleman, decided with some volunteers from Houston Bronze Ensemble that there had to be a better way than the scrolls that were written on cloth and unrolled and just were a little bit cumbersome in our opinion. So Kevin and several volunteers worked to digitize, and they selected Microsoft PowerPoint because that was the system they knew the best, the software. And so they use Microsoft um, PowerPoint and try to replicate what's on the scrolls. And they came up with, they display a measure of music on the screen and the citizens read that. And we divide the colors. There's a separate line for each color. And it's pretty organized. And my group knows how to read it and sight read it, and it allows you to just pick up a piece of music and play.
Mhm.
And I'll just say the group in Abilene also is now digital. Eric Logan, who took my place, has done the same thing. And I think his system is slightly different from what Brookwood uses, but with the same results. And so they have gone digital also. And it works great. Like you said, he can just get a piece of music and plug it into his system, and it doesn't take near as long as it did back in the day when we had to write the scrolls out by hand.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
You know,
how long does it take to turn a piece of just like an average 3-minute piece, for example, into one of these to adapt the notation? How long does that take?
On the digital,
Yeah.
Diana.
I'm going to suggest a couple hours, and it depends how much activity.
uh,
Quarter notes are super easy because you're just writing the letter names. We use lines to show that you're lengthening the duration of the note. So the more lines you have to put in, the longer that takes. And we use 100% of the Handbell Musicians of America handbell notation. So if you've got techniques like marts and mart lifts and mallets and everything that you add to it takes a little more time. The other thing we do is we highlight the melody. And so my ringers always know who's carrying the tune. And I can have the others, I can work for balance within the organization, but it takes a little while to highlight the melody throughout the piece too. So 3-minute piece, probably a minimum of 3 to 4 hours.
it's a fascinating process to me, having seen it from scrolls, to what it is now and what you guys get out of the musicians with it. And if I'm understanding correctly, that this came about as something that is an alternative style of notation for people who may have trouble interpreting or processing, the standard 5 lines, and rhythmic notation and stuff. Do you guys see this point as supplanting standard notation, or is this something that could work in no pun intended, in harmony with standard notation? Like, is there a goal to get the ringers comfortable with this adaptive notation in an effort to move them toward reading more traditional notation, or vice versa, trying to get more people to stop teaching standard notation and embrace this as a hardcore alternative? Like, how do you see the two working, competing, interleaving, and cooperating? I'm just curious how that can all unfold and where you guys see that go.
I'll talk about the school group. Most of the students, well, all the students that were in our program were special education students,
Right.
and really are not capable of reading standard music notation. Maybe at a very simple level, they could eventually pick out their note and play a simple melody or something like that. But our goal was for them to get out in the community and perform and really show people what special education students are capable of. People think of them as, they can't do this, they can't do that. And this is something that through that music notation that they excel at. And so for that particular population, I don't think it's a goal to eventually transition to reading conventional music. For one thing, in school, you don't have them all that long. You have them maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4. So that's what I would say to that as far as the situation in the public school. Now, I know, like at Brookwood, Diana's group, some of them have been ringing probably the whole 20 years that she mentioned. So I don't know, maybe, possibly, but our goal was always just for them to be able to do it so they could go and experience performing in different places and getting that feeling of esteem, self-esteem that, here I am in front of this big group of people and they're giving me a standing ovation. And, it brings the audience to tears a lot of times seeing them do that. So for, at least in my opinion, and for the school group, that's not really a necessary goal for them.
Diana, how about you guys at Brookwood?
Well, Brookwood picks up, their citizens move to Brookwood after they've graduated and aged out of the public school system. I have ringers that are in their later 60s now. I have some that are in their early to mid 30s, so it's a very wide age range. Some of them are developmentally challenged, others are physically challenged. And as Cathy said, I don't think it's a goal of the Brookwood community to teach them to ring, but our group exists to help. Our kind of trademark motto is we want to change the way the world sees adults with disabilities, and we want to show them what they are able to do. Beyond Brookwood, your question was, do I see it supplanting? My father was an accomplished musician, and as he grew older, his ability to read music, because of the size of the text and the lines, he couldn't read traditional music. He couldn't read a hymnal anymore.
Yeah.
I see this as a way that, you know, for seniors to maybe come together if they can determine different colors, but they could have an activity and get together and have the community and the support and, you know, all the benefits that music brings to us, and the success from performing by just reading a colored letter, and they can just pick it up and instantly do this. So for visually impaired, for non-English speakers, Linda McKechnie and I were kind of teaching that for non-music readers, because learning to read traditional music notation is a skill and it takes a lot of work. And this is a way that you can bring music to people without requiring all that investment of time. And I would love to see it become more widespread so that everybody could participate in a music activity.
What kind of resources would you point people to, or where would you send folks who are either interested in learning more about this to research and implementing it into their own communities, groups, schools, etc., or I would say for people who are skeptical of it, to say, well, what if you can teach people this thing, why can't you teach them how to just read? It's only 5 lines and 4 spaces. You know, that don't understand processing challenges, that don't understand how vision impairment may be an issue, and all of the other hurdles that you all are jumping so successfully with this. Where would you steer people who either want more information because they're on board and want to know more, or who are skeptical of it and kind of like prove to them the worth of the notation? Like, where do they go to get more info?
Well, I know that Linda McKechnie has been working on a book. Diana, I don't know where that stands at this time, but she has been trying to put together a resource. Do you know?
Well, her book, I don't know the status of the formal book publication. That was the foundation of what we taught from in 2023. I am trying to transcribe several Learn to Ring Bells texts, including Linda's Ringing for the First Time. I'm working on Brenda Austin's Ringing 101. I'm trying to get, I wrote them down here, Beginning Busy Ringers is going to be published by AGEHR, and that will be in overtones in 2026.
Okay.
And I'm working with that. I believe that if we're going to successfully ask people to try this methodology, they have to have literature to play. You can't offer them 3 or 4 pieces of music and then leave them high and dry. And after they've gathered the people and gathered the equipment, ask the directors then to learn to transcribe the music into this adaptive notation methodology. I think that's too much. So I'm trying to get as much level 1 and Learn to Ring music out there. So I'm pursuing this fairly actively as time permits with publishers to get through the legal hurdles of transcribing and transforming copyrighted music so that there is music out there. So that's how I plan to use the next phase of my connection to this adaptive notation.
And okay, so in a perfect world, how do you see these resources that you're creating? Do you see them like being used nationwide in other communities like Brookwood or in schools like what Kathy has?
I do. I've talked to Cathy Abel Shaw, and she thinks that we should consider doing a series of Zoom interviews like this with music therapists.
Hmm.
Um, the Brookwood community is in the process of putting together through their network with the special needs community um, a workshop conference on how we can teach how to do this. And I think in coordination with HMA through the Chime loan programs that are out there and, you know, through the schools, it's just going to take some time to get it out there. The other thing I will suggest is I display mine as does the group in Abilene on a TV screen. So it does require a little technology. We don't have a traditional piece of music sitting in front of us.
Mhm.
I considered developing a printed resource where the page mirrors what you see on the TV screen. And I was discouraged by one of the publishers saying that that kind of defeats the purpose of this. Just an opinion.
Is there just last thought I had on that score is you mentioned copyright and stuff. Where do people start with that if there's a piece they're trying to adapt in this way? I know you guys aren't copyright attorneys and such, but where do they start? Do they need to go to the publisher or the copyright holder to get permission to do it? Is it considered fair use? Just in your experience, how do people get started on doing this?
I'll say that I asked Letha McGrew that question when I took her place when she retired, and she said, or she began doing her own arrangements, and they were like a one line melody.
Sure.
And so she did a lot of her own arrangements. And I don't know where she chose her songs or if they were, you know, copyrighted, not to be arranged. But she said she did like talk to Mr. Jeffers at one time and kind of explained what she was doing. And he encouraged her to go on with it. Now, as far as anything legal, I don't have an answer to that question. It's just kind of been, we just always done it, you know. So,
Okay.
she did tell, yeah, she did tell me that anytime she used published music, she bought like a class set of the piece. She didn't just take one piece of music and, you know, adapt it. So she purchased enough of the music to where as if her students were going to read the music and play from that.
Right.
So she did that, but that's kind of, I don't know, Diana, do you have anything else to say about that?
Well, for the Brookwood community, I have reached out to the publishers, and a lot of them have you can an accessible means to communicate with them about that. Because it was for Brookwood, the permission was usually granted for that nonprofit organization. When I went to national seminar, I did contact each publisher and ask permission for the music that we performed because I am adapting copyrighted and I use almost all copyrighted materials. And I don't have a final answer for you, Michael. I think
That's
we're
fine.
still
I mean,
in the gray area.
yeah, and that's that. Like I said, contacting the publisher is a great first step, one way or the other. You know, because you're going to them and saying, "Hey, this is something I'd like to do. Can we have permission?" And then, you know, if they say, "Well, you don't need to ask in the future," great. But of course, that answer may vary from publisher to publisher. Just curious for word to the wise for people who want to jump into this. You know, for them to do it right, do it the right way, the right process.
Right.
So.
Where I kind of see it right now, I could get permission for the Brookwood, again, my nonprofit, to use this. Now that I want to teach a seminar, I'm now trying to sell as part of the registration. And I think that's a completely different discussion, trying
Yeah.
to sell a product than just use it for a not-for-profit group of individuals. So I am working, and several of the publishers just said, just give us a heads up what you want to do, but you have blanket permission to do any of our pieces. One publisher made us sign a licensing agreement, and I'm still trying to work with one publisher who is not particularly responsive, and we're just not really making progress. But I think it's widespread. So my thought is work with the publishers that give you carte blanche to use their library
Yeah.
and start there.
Thanks.
Great. Kathy and Diana, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you and wish you the best of success in your new book. Thanks so much.
You guys have a wonderful holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.